Sonny, where'd you get your name? Sonny, where'd that come from? Hey, I always thought there was a code in there instead of the. But a lot of years of my life, I went by IC. I'm sorry, we're on Thomas, which is lesson 11. Thomas, lesson 11. All right. That was because there were two of us in our military training class, two Joneses. And so when the instructor would, I knew he was looking at me, but I didn't know the answer, so I looked down the line at the other Jones without looking up at the instructor. So they changed our nameplates. Mine became IC Jones, and he became TR Jones. And that followed me as long as I had folks that were in my training class with me in the military. They called me IC. But anyway, it went away after a while, after I got out of the military. Oddly enough, there were some people from the military that came to work for HP at the same time, so it did follow me into HP for a while. Anybody else with a nickname? That has followed you around or that you go by? Sonny Maynard had
my nickname was Frog. When I worked on the farm for all those years, I went to work on the farm when I was 12. And I don't know why, but there was a guy named Dave Hartman. I worked on the dairy farm. They had two barns, and he worked on the Lord dairy barn. He lived there and milked the cows. And for some reason, during the hay season, I would work there. I started when I was 12 years old, and he named me Frog.
Frog.
So that stuck. F-R-O-G, Frog.
Well, that's where's mine, I'm Duckman.
Duckman, okay.
Yeah. After the TV show, the cartoon Duckman, and the TV show in the early 90s. And my school teachers called me that every morning.
Interesting.
I had the name of Gomer stuck on me at Bible camp. And it still
Gomer's
sticks.
Bible camp. Thomas had a nickname that wasn't part of the scripture, but what was Thomas's scriptural name? Didymus, or the twin. The doubter, I guess, has come on from Bible study, Bible teachers, or whatever. But why the doubter? Why not courageous? We'll be looking at three different references to Thomas this morning. The first one, he says, let's go die with Christ. So why not Thomas the Courageous? Your book gives the title Fatalist. I don't like that term. I think more courageous. The second reference will be, what do you mean? Where are we going? Tell us where we're going and how to get there. So, the curious, the questioner, the thoughtful. Why not Thomas the thoughtful, as opposed to doubting Thomas?
I suspect that doubting is just from human nature. We always look for the worst in people and emphasize that rather than accentuating on the positives.
Isn't that a shame? We look for the worst in folks and go to that?
I
Go
mean,
to the best?
the old saying of you can do 100 things right and one thing wrong, and you'll be remembered for the one thing.
Absolutely.
in a position like that. I had building and grounds here for 25 years. As a deacon. And I worked in every part, looked at in this building, and done something to it over those years, and you do one thing wrong. That's what, you better be sure, that's what people are gonna come up and talk to you about.
Right.
But
They're going to talk to you about the one thing you do wrong.
if you do, now, that's not, what I'm saying is, well, I got bragged on this morning, amongst those tables over there, and that, they don't always hold true. Some folks do come around and they notice stuff, and they're bragging a little bit. I don't look for that. It's a pleasant surprise when it happens. But if you do something wrong,
Yeah.
yeah,
So where did, we have a record of some of the other apostles, of how they, when Jesus called them to be apostles. How about Thomas? Do we have a record of Thomas when he became an apostle? The closest I could find was Luke chapter 6, 12 through 16. Now it came to pass in those days that he, being Jesus, went out to the mountain to pray, and continued all night in prayer to God. And when it was day, he called his disciples to himself, and from them he chose 12, whom he also named apostles. Simon, who he also named Peter. Jesus named his apostles other things, okay? Simon, who he also named Peter, Andrew his brother, James and John, who later on we get the name Sons of Thunder, Philip and Bartholomew, Matthew and Thomas, James the son of Alphaeus, and Simon called the Zealot. So Thomas is listed there with the apostles. Judas the son of James, and Judas Iscariot, who also became a traitor. And he came down with them and stood in a level place with a crowd of his disciples and a great multitude of people from all Judea and Jerusalem, and from the seacoast of Tyre and Sidon, who came to hear him and be healed of their diseases. We have a distinction here between the people, the disciples, and then those that he named apostles. Like I said, this is the only record I could find of when Thomas was designated to be an apostle. Okay, from the lesson, one of the thoughts that we have is we must be loyal to God unto death. And it comes from that first reading about Lazarus, reference to Lazarus. In John 11, verse 8, and this is during a discussion where Lazarus had died. He's gotten word that Lazarus had died. And he's going back to Jerusalem, and the apostles say, Rabbi, lately the Jews sought to stone you, and you're going there again? Jesus was determined to go back to Judea because he knew that he would be performing one of his greatest miracles, and that would be bringing a person back to life. The apostles didn't understand, we use a lot of words for when somebody has died or passed away. In this case, he said, Lazarus has gone to sleep. And the apostles respond with, well, that's good. He sleeps, he'll get better. And Jesus had to be pretty plain with them, says, Lazarus is dead. And I'm glad for your, this is verses 14, 15, I'm glad for your sakes that I was not there, that you may believe. Nevertheless, let us go to him. And And Thomas speaks up in verse 16. Let us go, that we may die with him. He's encouraging the other apostles to join with him. That's something we need always, to be encouraging others to be faithful. Faithful unto death. It's interesting that verse in 16, let us also go that we may die with him. A lot of translations don't capitalize the he, him, his when it refers to God or Christ. They use small h, which leads some commentators to say that the him here is Lazarus. And sort of sarcastically, well, Lazarus is dead. If we go up there, we're all going to be dead. That's not generally, that's not a widely accepted translation or version of that. Most everything, and it fits much more closely that the him here is Jesus. Let's go with Jesus. Let's follow him back to Jerusalem, do whatever we need to do. It reminds me of Peter going to defend Christ, as if Christ needs defending, with a sword. He cuts off the ear of one of the priest's servants, and I don't think he was, let me cut off your ear. I think he was swinging for the head, and he ducked, and that's all he got was the ear. But if you got a sword and you're going to defend somebody, that's more likely. Doesn't indicate he did cut it on the shoulder like he was coming down, but anyway, I believe anyway. A little sidebar.
That guy was really fortunate that Peter did cut his ear off. And I've never thought of that before. Again, I would think, boy, he would dodge from one side and he cut it off. But when Jesus put his ear back on, he believed. He believed.
And if you think about it, why wasn't Peter in that situation? Why wasn't Peter arrested by the group that was there? But Jesus intervened.
Come, Jason, they were there for Jesus.
They were there for Jesus, and Jesus intervened and put his ear back on and said, this is not what we're here about.
When you look at the context of John 11, you back up to the verse prior to verse 12, you see that they knew that Jesus would be in danger of dying if they threatened to stone him. So when you go down to the verse 16, that we may die with him, okay, if Jesus is going to be stoned, we're going to be there at his side.
Right.
That makes continuity of context that you
Whatever
alluded
Jesus is going
to.
to go through, we're going to go through it with you. Later on, when they took Jesus to be crucified, the apostles scattered. Everybody was scattered, except for Peter and one other apostle that followed, see what was going to go. We suspect John.
Well, he looked down there at the apostle.
It was in the book of John, but he's, yeah. There's one other
That
apostle.
was only one, and I know of in the Bible that said that he loved. I think it was John.
Yeah, it was.
And Thomas also made the statement, let us go. It wasn't, I'm going to go, and the rest of y'all can do what you want. It was an encouragement for everybody. Let's go. We always need to be encouraging those that are around us to follow and do the right thing.
Did he also not speak to John on the cross? And he said, Mother, there's our son, son,
He did.
there's our mother. Yeah, he was speaking to John on the cross. So,
Christ had the invitation, follow me. Thomas was ready to follow him, even to death. In words, and sometimes we have every intent of doing something, but something gets us off track. Fear, or something else. As Christians, we need to make sure that we're also ready to die for Christ if the situation calls for it.
Wonder, are we allowed to resist if we can?
why would you want to? But yes.
Why would I want to? To maintain my life.
Peter resisted.
Yeah.
Paul used the fact that he was a Roman
Well,
to,
he talked him out of it.
right.
Why do we, why do the men in our congregation, and there's some men here today that are armed? I know I am, and there's a reason for that. If somebody comes to the front door, we are not going to line up and let him shoot every one of us. I don't think. Well, I know I'm
Okay.
not. I would resist.
Okay, this author, the time will come when being a Christian will be difficult. In other parts of the world, Christians are already being killed because of their belief. It wasn't only during the time of Christ, it's today. Our missionary has had attempts on his life a number of times. Those that do missionary work in other parts of the world have to be very careful about what they say and what they do. Acquaintances with missionaries to China may, when they write back, if someone's baptized, oh, we went swimming today, is a comment that those that reading the letters would know means they baptized somebody. Because those things are, the emails, the correspondence are monitored by the government in many of these places.
We sing that song. If I should die upon a foreign field, no less could I repay. If we're not willing to put our faith in action to the point of death, are we truly serving Christ? Whether we have to resist or not. But if we're not willing to die, and we sing that song, oh Jesus, if I die upon a foreign field someday, are we willing to sing the truth?
Now, I want to say something right here. I don't want to take over your class, and I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to do that. And what you just said there, if you're saying that I am supposed to give myself up, if a guy comes through that door today, am I supposed to rush out there and let him shoot me? Absolutely not. I would never do that. And it has nothing to do with my faith. My faith is, I see it as, I am going to inherit heaven when I die. I don't think the Lord requires us to give ourselves up unto death. I just don't believe that. Now, I may be the only one here that believes that, but that's just the way I am. I'm not going to give myself up. I'm not going to deny Christ for anyone.
Well,
Okay, and there are a lot of reasons why we want to protect ourselves or protect our friends or our family. How about Romans 12:1? I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. So we have the narrative about will we die for Christ. What is our lives? How will we live our lives for Christ? What will we do in living that will promote Christ and God?
when you look at the sacrifice of the Old Testament, that animal was as pure as it could be, kept under total control until the point of death. To present ourselves a living sacrifice, we keep ourselves under control, as close to the truth as we can, till we die. How we die is, we don't know. As Charlie said, he's willing to defend it. I'm willing to defend it. If somebody comes through the door, to shoot, I hope Charlie's aim's good, because he's liable to kick me in the back. I'm gonna be tackled. You know, we are to defend ourselves. Christ said 2 swords is enough. Does that mean everybody has to be armed? No. But
We're talking about what we hope never happens.
we're hoping never happens.
Day to day, every day,
We've got
there
that.
are events that occur where we can show Christ living in us.
Amen.
And that's, we can think about that in depth, but we need to think about what can I do every day to bring someone closer to Christ, living for Christ.
I think there's a couple of different ways of scenarios we might be combining together. It's one thing to defend ourselves and protect ourselves, and we should certainly do that. But I think we've talked about here, as far as our willingness, is we're not going to denounce Christ or deny Christ to save our own lives. So if we're being threatened with persecution, I think that's what he's talking about there. There's nothing wrong with defending ourselves, I would say. If we're at a point where we're told, deny Christ and you'll be fine, you're not going to be persecuted anymore, and we didn't do that, then I think we're wrong.
And that's the situation of many of the missionaries around the world. They continue to teach Christ.
But again, what the Satan referenced as death, and if you give yourself up to death, it's giving yourself up to Satan for Christ's sake. To fight for Christ against Satan.
And Satan is always alive and looking for ways to distort your intent, change your intent, make you do something. Everybody gives you a nickname of Doubting Thomas. How about we must be willing to be taught? The second part of the lesson. In John, Christ says, "Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you, and if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there you may be also. And where I go, you know, and the way you know." And this is where Thomas comes in, thinking physical. And he'd been traveling with Jesus, going all over the place, and, all right, we don't know where you're going now. Tell us where you're going and tell us how to get there. This is where he's asking for more information. There's no end to learning in our life. The statement has been made a number of times here recently, that the more you know you don't know, and that applies especially to the Bible, but it applies to anything. My college studies was industrial engineering. And in that we learned a lot of stuff, a little about a lot of different things, but we didn't really get deep into anything. We need to be deep in the Bible. When we get deep, the farther we go, the more we realize we need to know. Is there an end to learning in our lives on anything, about anything? We learn more and more about life each day. And even though we have a great deal of experience, there are things that come up that we get that catch us by surprise, or we find out we don't know the answer to. The elders of the church are in charge, right? Does that mean they're all knowing about all things? Where we came from, the elders would occasionally come to Susan because of her background with kids. And they had a situation that required some insight in how to deal with a family situation involving kids. They didn't say, well, I know all the answers. They would come and ask her. If the printer was broken, they might come ask me. That's what I did for HP. But, you know, there are things that come up that we may not have all the answers about, and we need to be ready to go ask an expert, go ask someone with a great deal of experience in that area. Subjects come up in Bible studies. I need to know more about that. And we can get into a study devoted to the subject of whatever it might be. And we see a lot of things in the Scripture when we're looking for a topical item, we're looking for a specific item. We'll see things that we don't normally see, we just read over the top of it. One of the authors, the commentators that I use, commented, like Thomas, it is better to be ignorant for a few minutes and ask questions rather than to not ask a question and be ignorant forever. I wish Thomas had asked two questions about, when in the discussion with Lazarus, when he's asked about not going back to Jerusalem and potentially being killed, and he comes up and his statement is along the lines of, if we walk in the light, we're okay. If we walk in darkness, we're not. How does that fit to that situation? Thomas, I wish you'd ask that question there. Give a little more insight into that. Jesus answered, I am the way to Thomas's question in this reference, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. So Jesus is speaking in spiritual terms. Thomas and the apostles are thinking in physical terms. Another important ingredient in learning is getting rid of preconceived biases, prejudices, and ideas. This author makes a comment that I really disagree with. Get rid of preconceived ideas and be open to new truths. It's kind of a blanket statement. Okay. We may need to evaluate, but like the Bereans, with new truths. The Bible's been around for a long time, and a lot of men have put in a lot of time in interpreting these scriptures. We need to be like the Bereans and receive new thoughts, but evaluate them against the scriptures. Always evaluate them against the scriptures. Make sure that we are doing the right thing. You must believe and not doubt, which gets to the doubting Thomas part of it. A number of names were given to the apostles: Thomas, the twin of Didymus, Simon, Peter, the rock, James and John, sons of thunder, Simon the zealot, Nathaniel, who was called Bartholomew, and most references he's listed as Bartholomew, Matthew, the tax collector, and Saul became Paul later on. Thomas the twin, one of the 12, was not with them when Jesus, this is John 20, 24, 25. Thomas, called the twin, one of the 12, was not with them when Jesus came. The other disciples therefore said to him, "We have seen the Lord." Now in John 20, back up a little bit, John 20, 19 and 20, all the other apostles were together and had already had that experience. Same day at evening, being the first day of the week when the doors were shut, where the apostles were assembled for the fear of the Jews, Jesus came and stood in the midst and said to them, "Peace be with you." Now when he had said this, he showed them his hands and his side. Then the disciples were glad when they saw the Lord. All the other apostles had already experienced this. So why do we speak against Thomas when he says, "Unless I see his side and the prints in his hand, I will believe you." There are a number of other references where Jesus has eluded people or gotten away from them. They sought to stone him in one situation, and he just disappeared from their midst. These were because it wasn't time for his death yet. They could have, if he had allowed it, a number of times. Thomas wanted more proof. We reach a situation where we don't understand. We may need more proof to verify, is this from God or is this not? So verse 28, after 8 days, the disciples were again inside, and Thomas with them. Jesus came, the doors being shut, and stood in the midst and said, "Peace to you." Then he said to Thomas, "Reach your finger here and look at my hands, and reach your hand here and put it into my side. Do not be unbelieving, but believing." And Thomas answered and said to him, "My Lord and my God." So once he saw the proof, he was all in. And then Jesus makes the statement, "Thomas, because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." We're not in a position ourselves to see the Lord, touch his hands, put our hand in his side. So that applies to everyone else. Thank you for your comments. Next week,